sustainable innovation. Well, Professor Musa has an extensive and impressive publication record and has delivered presentation and keynotes at major national and international scientific forums. Beyond his research, he is a respected thought leader promoting ethical science and cross-sectional collaboration across biotechnology, ICT, and healthcare and agriculture innovation ecosystems. Through his leadership and advocacy, he is inspiring a new generation of Africa researchers to explore the powerful intersection of AI, biotechnology, and biodiversity in shaping the future of global health, food security, and innovation. Please join me in welcoming Professor Dickson Musa. Professor, sir, the floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mercy. Can everyone hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
I would like to share.
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Thank you very much. So we're discussing the architecture of academic excellence and ethical AI integration in scholarly research. And that is what we would like to do in week 1 of this academy. So I'd like to ask, or maybe imagine submitting your life's work, years of research, sleepless nights, intellectual sacrifice to a top journal. And it comes back with 4 words in the feedback saying, unclear contribution, see reviewers. Unfortunately, that's the reality of academic writing for 70 to 90% of first submissions. And so today we will go through the ground conditions for academic writing and the reality check, the foundations, which is the 4 pillars of academic success, introduction to ethical AI for research, and the academic standard we hope to have in this academy. Then we'll end for today. So the reality check, just like I've said, sometimes we have that horrible feedback come to us. And I want to ask, with a show of hands, how many of you have had a piece of writing returned before? Maybe a proposal, or a thesis chapter, or a submission with a feedback that felt vague or discouraging? How many? Just show of hand. Great, great, great. Good. That experience is the starting point for this conversation today. We will cover the brutal, unfiltered truths of academic writing that most programs never teach explicitly. We will build the 4 pillars that transform good research into publishable, citable, career-building scholarship. We will integrate ethical AI, not as shortcuts, but as precision instruments. And we'll set the academic standard, what thriving in this environment actually looks like. So by the end of this session, you will have a blueprint, not for rejection-proof papers. No such thing exists. In fact, the best published author's work can still be rejected. So for rejection-resilient scholars, that is what we intend to build. I like to say that most papers are not rejected because researchers are not smart. They are rejected because researchers were never taught how scholarship actually works. Vague or absent research questions account for approximately 40% of rejections. So when your research question is vague or it is absent, it is easy for papers to easily reject. That means the paper does not have a clear, defensible research question. It has a topic, but no researchable question. Another thing is weak or unjustified methodology. This accounts for approximately 25% of rejections. The method is present, but not defended. So this also accounts for a lot of high rejections. Another reason for rejection is thin or incoherent argumentation. And this accounts for approximately 20% of rejections. The paper has findings, but does not argue their significance with sufficient rigor. You may have very, very beautiful findings, but if you are not able to argue why those findings are significant, such papers can be rejected. And also, another reason why papers can be rejected, approximately 15% of the time, is ethical and scholarly integrity. This includes citation errors and undisclosed AI use. Some people use AI to generate a whole paper without disclosing it, and it's easy to dictate these days. So these are the unclear contribution, which is the primary killer of emerging researchers. Now, the problem is that there is a gap between a student who writes and a scholar who publishes, and the gap is not intelligence. It is the initiation into craft. And this initiation is not properly handled in most cases, especially by our supervisors or by our schools. So there is an invisible curriculum in the academia that supervisors assume you already know. And journals also assume you have learned in your program, probably a doctoral program. So the supervisors assume you know, they didn't teach you. Journals assume you know, so they punish you for not knowing it. So most of us have never been explicitly taught this. So what are these hidden expectations that were not taught? Reverse engineering journals. Before you write, study the last 5 issues of your target journal. What gap does each published paper fill? What theoretical conversation does it enter? This is not optional preparation. It is the professional practice of every researcher who publishes consistently. If you are targeting a paper, you must also study that paper. They are published, and you must know the direction in which they are publishing, the gaps they have filled, the gap that is yet to be filled. Another hidden expectation is peer brutalism before submission. Before submitting anything, get 3 people to read it. 3 people that are not your supervisors. If you are submitting a thesis chapter, for instance, 3 people that are not part of your supervisory team, let them get to read it and brutally critique your work before you submit it to your supervisor. Before you submit it to your supervisor. And if it is to a journal, to get people to critically look at your work before you submit to the journal. Ideally, researchers who will challenge your assumptions, not affirm them. This will help you to fix blind spots early before a reviewer does it for you in a rejection letter. When the reviewer, if you allow it to get to the reviewer, it might come back in the form of rejection letter, and we do not want that. Number 3 is iterative drafting as a discipline. A thesis, for instance, is a marathon. A journal article is a sprint. A 90,000 word thesis, for instance, typically needs to lose 70% of its content to become an 8,000 word journal article. That is not a revision. It is transformation. They are fundamentally different genres. We don't just take your thesis and it becomes a journal article. They are two different things. And you are not just compressing what is in your thesis. You are fundamentally transforming it. So we must learn this. Then contribution to framing. Not what you studied, but what you add to existing knowledge. This is the question every reviewer is asking from line 1. And that is a very critical thing. We must be able to frame our contributions very well in such a way that reviewers cannot reject our paper. Yes, you know what you studied, but what the journal is looking out for is what you have contributed to knowledge. Why does this paper exist at all? What does it contribute that the field does not already have? That is the question you are supposed to be answering. Critical engagement with rivals. Academic argument is not a monologue. It is a dialogue with the existing literature, including and especially the work that challenges your position. You should know that when you write anything, you should study well enough to know those papers in literature that do not agree with your work. And you must be able to integrate what they are saying into your work. You don't just dismiss what they are saying, you must be able to integrate it into your work. So if you are in a doctoral program, for instance, and you have not started publishing, during your second year of doctoral program, you should have at least written 2 great articles. Do not wait for your defense. The researchers who publish first are not more intelligent. They just start the journal writing process earlier. And that is what you ought to do too. If time allows, and you should find the time, please do this. Make sure you publish, review papers in the early parts of your PhD process. Now, there's a fundamental difference between the thesis and the journal article. The thesis is written to demonstrate mastery to an examining committee. The journal article is written to contribute to and persuade a community of specialists. These require entirely different writing dispositions. Your audience is different, and how you communicate your findings to your audience must also be different. Thesis is solitary, expansive, and supervisor approved, produced over years. Journal article is public, concise, peer rival scrutinized, and produced in months. Thesis examiners read to assess you. Journals reviewers read to assess whether the work advances the field, and those are two different things. The shift from am I good enough to does it matter is the central psychological shift of early academic career development. In your thesis preparation, the question you're answering is, am I good enough? But in your journal publication, the question you're answering is, does it matter? So a thesis proves you belong in a conversation. A published article moves the conversation forward. This requires fundamentally different writing dispositions. So what are the practical distinctions for submissions? A thesis tolerates extended contextualization. A journal article punishes it. So if you're writing thesis, your context must be broad and extended. But in journal article, it is not accepted. So treat your thesis as the raw material and refine it into a focused, peerless, finished product in your journal article. The voice of a thesis may narrate your intellectual journey. A journal article foregrounds the argument, not the researcher. In a thesis, you position yourself within the literature. In a journal article, you position the gap and the contribution to the field. Most journal articles follow the IMRAD structure, that is the introduction, method, result, and discussion, or discipline-specific equivalents. So that's the structure of most journals. So you have to know your target journal structure before you write, not after. And if you have studied some 5 issues back, you will have known the structure. So you may target 3 journals per paper in a ranked order of preference. Prepare your second submission before you receive the first rejection. This is how productive scholars maintain momentum. Now that we have named the landscape clearly, let us build the architecture you need to navigate it. And we move to the 4 pillars of academic success. If one is weak, the structure is compromised. So we need the 4 pillars to be able to move. Every piece of excellent scholarship, from a seminar paper to a Nature article, rests on these 4 pillars. Now let us examine each pillar with rigor. Pillar 1. Pillar 1 is the clarity of research question. And the research question is everything. The research question is not just the starting point of your study. It is the lens through which every decision, the method to be used, the theory, the analysis, and everything. It is the lens through which they must be evaluated and justified. Your research question determines the method, the theory, and the analysis, and how they are evaluated. A weak research question produces a weak study, regardless of how sophisticated the analysis. No amount of methodological virtuosity can rescue a vague or misformed question. Let us look at the anatomy of a research question, a strong research question. Number one, it identifies a gap. A gap is something that is genuinely unknown, or that is contested, or underexplored, or inadequately theorized in existing literature. Something becomes a gap if in the existing literature it has not been mentioned, or it has been mentioned by several people but with opposing views, it is contested, or it is underexplored, or there's no adequate theory to back it up, then it becomes a research gap. A strong research question specifies a scope with precision. Compare these two questions, for instance. What is the impact of social media? That is one question. As a research question, what is the impact of social media? The second question is, how does Instagram use influence body image perception among female university students in Lagos? I'll take the two research questions again so that we can compare in our mind. Number one, what is the impact of social media? Number two, how does Instagram use influence body image perception among female university students in Lagos? You will discover that the second is focused, it is contextualized, and it is researchable. The first is a research interest, not a research question. And we must be able to differentiate between a research question and a research interest. A research interest is not researchable, but a research question is researchable. A strong research question implies a method. A well-formed question signals how it should be answered. How does X experience Y? Implies qualitative inquiry. What is the relationship between X and Y across N cases? Implies quantitative design. So a strong research question will determine the kind of method we will use. And finally, a strong research question is answerable. Given your resources, your timeline, and access, you can actually generate credible data to address it within your project scope. Apply this to the real world. Identity in Africa. This is a continent, a concept, and a century of scholarship condensed into 3 words. It is not a question. So if you say identity in Africa, it's a very weak research question. If we look at this research question, for instance, does honest recognition theory hold in post-colonial Nigeria? And if not, what alternative framework better accounts for Afrocentric relational identity? If you compare this with the first one, see that this is researchable. So this names a theory, test it in a specific context, and signals what a successful answer will look like. So the final thing I'll say here is that if you cannot express your research question clearly in one sentence, you do not yet have a research question. You only have a research interest. These are not the same thing. And supervisors rarely distinguishes between them explicitly. Test also whether strangers to your field can paraphrase your question back to you accurately. If they cannot, revise it. So these are the two things you must note. And before we continue here, I want you to use some AI tools like Anthropic Claude or maybe ChatGPT. If you have a research question in your mind, you use this prompt. Refine this question for submission to, you name the journal, then you paste your question. I'll take it again. Refine these questions for submission to any named journal. You have to name the journal. Then you paste the research question in your mind. Then after that, you write, identify any ambiguities. Identify any ambiguities. Scope problems or missing contextual specificity. Identify any ambiguities, scope problems, or missing contextual specificity. I want you to do this quickly. If you have a research question that you've been working on, quickly put that on maybe ChatGPT or Anthropic Claude or even Grok. With these prompts I've given you, refine this research question for submission to any named journal. Then paste that's your research question. Then you follow up by saying, identify any ambiguities, scope problems, or missing contextual specificity. I want to see your results in the chat box. I'd like to see your results in the chat box as we go on. The second pillar is the soundness of our methodology. Methodological soundness. The method is not just a chapter, it is a philosophical commitment. It is the spine of your scholarship. It signals to the reader and the reviewer that you understand not just what you did, but why that approach is defensible, given your research question and your position on what counts as valid knowledge. Too many researchers choose method because it is familiar, because their supervisor uses it, or because the data happen to come in that form. This is one of the most common and most avoidable errors in postgraduate research. Let us look at some core definitions with regards to methodology. Epistemology. This is the branch of philosophy concerned with the nature and validity of knowledge. In research, your epistemological position determines what you believe can be known and how it can be known. And this is the foundation on which methodological legitimacy rests. Ontology refers to your assumptions about the nature of reality itself. Methodological choice follows from ontological and epistemological commitment, not just from convenience. What is the existing knowledge? And what is the theory around what you want to work on? You must know these two. A method is a specific technique used to collect or generate data. It could be through interviews, surveys, ethnographic observation, textual analysis, regression modeling. The methodology is the philosophical justification for using that technique in this study. Using the technique for the study, for the question, and with the participants you are using or the sources from which you are getting. So the next is, how do we match method to question? How do we match method to question? What is the goal? Are we exploring a meaning? Are we measuring relationships? Or is it a complex triangulation? If we're exploring meaning, we have to use qualitative. If it is measuring relationship, it has to be quantitative. And if it is complex, we use mixed method. It could be mix of qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative approach are appropriate when you are exploring meaning, lived experience of social context, when the how and why of human phenomena matters more than how many or to what extent. Hermeneutic inquiry, for example, is appropriate for interpreting the meaning in text or lived experience. Discourse analysis for examining how language constructs reality. Choose between them deliberately with explicit justification. Quantitative approaches are appropriate when you are measuring relationship, testing hypotheses, or describing distribution across population. When the question demands numerical, generalizable answers, you use quantitative approach. Then the mixed method are appropriate when a complexity genuinely demands triangulation of evidence sources. However, mixed method require explicit knowledge justification, not just convenience of wanting both. The two must be reconciled, not merely listed side by side. The strength test for your methodology is, could a skeptical reader or adversarial reviewer replicate your study with information you have provided and arrive at a comparable data? If not, you have under-specified your method. Somebody that is skeptical about your method, or somebody that even opposes your method, can he replicate what you have done and arrive at comparable data? That's the question you must answer. That's a test for your methodology. Could a skeptical reader falsify your findings by using your own methodology. Good empirical methodology is transparent enough to be tested. If your method is opaque, your findings are immune from scrutiny, and that is not a strength. Overclaiming is also a big pitfall. For instance, saying this proves authenticity exists. When your method can only suggest, indicate, or provide evidence, under specifying, not documenting your reflexivity, your sampling rationale, or analytical procedures. So we must not overclaim and we must not underclaim. Those two are very, very important. You do not choose a method like you choose a tool from a shelf. You choose it like you choose a lens. It determines not what you see, but how you see and what you are even able to see. This takes us to a third pillar, which is the architecture of argument. Argument in scholarly writing is not debate or conflict. It is the structured evidence-based case for a particular interpretation, finding, or position. Every academic paper is fundamentally an argument. The data does not speak for itself. You speak for the data through a rigorously constructed analytical narrative. For a thesis, a clear, defensible, specific statement of what you assert, not this paper explores X, but this paper argues that X on the grounds of Y and Z. That's not a good argument. You have to anticipate objections. Before a reviewer raises a counter evidence, you raise it yourself. This is called stillmanning, giving the strongest possible version of the position that challenges yours. For example, Fraser rightly identifies misrecognition as a structural injustice. However, her framework premised on Western liberal assumptions about autonomous selfhood fails to account for Afrocentric conceptions of relational identity, in which recognition is communal rather than individual. Now you have provided the strongest objection to your position, and you have also defeated it. So before a reviewer will raise such objection, you have raised it yourself and you have defeated it, and it's called stillmanning. Another architecture of argument is rebuttal with evidence. Demonstrate why, despite the counter-argument, your position is more defensible, better evidenced, or more theoretically coherent. Then also give implications. What follows from this argument? Why does it matter? Who should care and why? This is where scholarly contribution crystallizes. To test each paragraph of your argument, there's a formula. And you say, does this paragraph advance my central claim? You must have a central claim when you are writing any paper. So after writing every paragraph, you ask yourself, does this paragraph advance my central claim? or it dismantles a competing position. If it does not advance your central claim, nor does it dismantle a competing position, it should be cut or restructured. Either you delete that paragraph completely or you restructure it. There are some common argument failures. Assertion without evidence. Making claims that rest on nothing but the researcher's conviction. Reviewers will not accept your conviction as evidence. If you make any claim, if you make any assertion, you must provide the evidence for such assertions. Evidence without interpretation. You may even have the evidence, but if it is not well interpreted, you have failed in your arguments. So presenting data as if analysis interprets itself is wrong. It does not. Your interpretative argument is the scholarly contribution you are making to the work. Another common argument failure is strawmanning rivals. That is, when you misrepresent competing position in weaker form that they actually hold, then you refute them if there is a competing position to your own. Instead of addressing the competing position, you now misrepresent it in a weaker form, such a way that you can easily destroy it. That is strawmanning your rivals. Reviewers who work in your field will notice this immediately and they will reject your work. Logical non sequitur. A conclusion that does not follow from the evidence actually presented. You make a conclusion and your paper does not support that conclusion. That's a logical non sequitur and can lead to rejection. That's an argument failure. Ignored counter evidence, pretending competing interpretations do not exist. Reviewers will not ignore them, and the absence of engagement signals intellectual insecurity, not confidence. I've been expecting to see some messages to show me what you did in the first prompt assignment I gave you in the course of the work, but I've not seen any. I hope you actually tried it. Another thing you could have done, which I will have given, but since you have not done the first one, I don't know if I can give this to. So maybe I'll just pass for now, and I expect you do the first one. But this is how we learn, by taking all instructions and doing them promptly. Which scholarship states findings? Strong scholarship argues their significance. The difference between a report and a scholarly contribution is the argument. So it is not your work just to state findings. You must argue their significance. This takes us to, okay, I'm beginning to see some contribution. I'm beginning to see some contribution, at least one, from Abigail John. Probably I'll be able to come back to this later. So, okay, that means let me give the second prompt assignment or classwork, because I expect you to do it now. Using either Gemini, Claude, Grok, ChatGPT. If you have written a paper or you are writing a manuscript, pick one paragraph from there and put Pick one paragraph from there, then put in any of these platforms, Gemini, Claude, Grok, ChatGPT. And the prompt is, score the argument rigor of this paragraph on a scale of 1 to 10. Score the argument rigor of this paragraph on a scale of 1 to 10. Perhaps a lot of us did not do it because probably we did not get the question. Let me try and paste the question and see if that will help. Yes, this is the prompting you will use. In the bracket, you now paste the paragraph you have picked from your manuscript. If you're not currently writing any manuscript, maybe you have written a project before or anything, just pick any paragraph from there and test this and see. I also want answers here. So let's go to Pillar 4, ethical scholarship. Ethics is not a compliance exercise, it is a scholarly disposition. Ethical scholarship begins before data collection and extends beyond publication. It is not a form you fill in for ethics committee. It is a disposition, a set of values you must have that you carry into every research decision. This pillar has become dramatically more complex with the integration of artificial intelligence into research workflows, which we'll address in depth in next section. What are the core dimensions of ethical scholarship? 1, research ethics. Informed concepts, participant protection, data confidentiality, honest reporting of both findings and limitation. This is something we must do. If you are involving human subjects in your research, you must have their informed consent before carrying out that research. You don't deceive people into a research. You must have their informed consent. And they must have protection. And their data must be protected too. And you also report honestly. If you think the line should be moving up and it's moving downward, you don't change it so that it moves up. Report honestly. And there's intellectual honesty, representing the accurately and completely, not cherry-picking evidence that conforms your hypothesis while ignoring evidence that challenges it. So we must be honest while writing. Attribution ethics, citing correctly, completely, and honestly, including citing scholars from global South, global North, and scholars whose work challenges yours. Citation is not just acknowledgement, it's a political act that shapes whose knowledge is made more visible. And what some people do is they only cite the work that they have appeared in before, self-citation and things like that. That's not what it should be. Transparency. You have to be explicit about who you are, how your identity and location shape your research questions and interpretation, and what biases you bring. This is not weakness, it is methodological integrity. Publication ethics. Not submitting to multiple journals simultaneously. You may have one work and you decide to submit to 3 journals. The 3 of them are reviewing at the same time, hoping that if one rejects, the other will accept. That is very, very wrong. You must wait, submit to 1 journal at a time. No duplicate submission. Some people even do triplicate and multiple submission. It is very wrong. We should also not fragment a single paper into 3 or 4. Just because we want to have multiple publications, we now fragment our data. It is not a good practice. And the one we must never do is never to fabricate data or manipulate them. Academic integrity is not a rule imposed on you from outside. It is the internal standard that makes your work trustworthy. And trust is the currency of scholarship. So let us now look at integration of AI in our work. Artificial intelligence has entered the academy, whether we are ready for it or not. The question before us today is not whether to use it. The question is how to use it with integrity, precision, and scholarly wisdom. AI is an assistant, not a replacement. And that is how we must treat it. AI is a map. A map can tell you the terrain, show you possible routes, and warn you of obstacles. But you still navigate the terrain. You still make the decision. You still arrive or do not arrive based on your own judgment and effort, not the map. So, and that is how we must treat AI. What AI does well in research context, AI helps with literature synthesis, assistance. It helps us to map a field quickly, cluster themes across large bodies of text, and surface papers you may have missed. A tool like Perplexity AI can, for example, map the methodological landscape across 50 to 100 papers in your domain in minutes, work that will take you days to do manually. AI can help in writing drafts for non-critical sections. Methodology summaries, background context, or first rough drafts that you substantially revise, deepen, and then make your own. AI can also help you proofread and do language enhancements, and is particularly valuable for researchers writing in a second or third language. AI can elevate fluency and clarity without altering meaning if you are directing it carefully. And that is very, very key, if you are directing it carefully. AI can help with brainstorming and intellectual pressure testing. Use AI as a sparring partner. Feed it your arguments. Ask it to challenge you. Ask it to generate the strongest counter-arguments to your thesis. Then address those counter-arguments in your paper. AI can help with qualitative coding assistance. AI tools can assist in preliminary thematic identification across interview, transcripts, or document sets. Though final interpretation must always be yours. You have to do the final interpretation. Citation formatting. AI can format references correctly, though you must independently verify every citation. AI hallucination of references Generating plausible looking but entirely fabricated citation is a documented, serious, and ongoing problem with all major AI tools. And we have to be very, very careful with this. What AI must never do. We must never ask AI to generate original research findings. AI cannot conduct interviews, make field observation, run control experiments, or produce data. Any findings AI generates are statistical plausibilities drawn from its training data, not evidence from the world. So we must never ask it to do that. AI cannot think critically in a disciplinary sense. AI simulates the patterns of critical reasoning, but does not genuinely evaluate evidence, weigh competing interpretation against disciplinary norms, or hold considered position. It produces the appearances of thought. So we must never ask AI to think critically for us. AI does not understand your research context. It does not know your field the way an expert in your field does. It produces plausible sounding text, not disciplinary grounded scholarship. That we must note. We must never ask AI to take intellectual responsibility for our writing. If AI writes your arguments and is methodologically flawed, factually wrong, or ethically compromised, you bear the academic consequence, not the AI. So you must know that you are not collaborating with AI, you are commanding it. That is the distinction that changes everything about how you approach these tools. You are not collaborating with AI, you are commanding it to do certain things. In literature review, it is acceptable for AI to cluster themes across hundreds of PDFs. You synthesize and argue. It is wrong for you to allow AI to write the review verbatim and you submit it as yours. You can ask AI to suggest structure, or submitting AI text without revision is bad. You can ask AI to visualize patterns, but you must do the interpretation yourself. AI can check grammar, but not heavy rewriting of your work. Originality in scholarship does not mean discovering something no human has ever thought. It means advancing knowledge in a documented, arguable, disciplinarily significant way. Your original contribution might be a new empirical finding, a new theoretical application, a new methodological approach, a new synthesis of existing evidence, or a new contextual application of an existing framework. These are legitimate publishable forms of originality. AI cannot generate any of these for you. It can help you articulate them, refine them, communicate them more effectively, but the originating intellectual act must be yours. The most dangerous thing AI can do to a young researcher is to convince them that fluency is the same as thought. It is not. Fluency without thought is sophisticated emptiness. Use AI as a mirror, not a ghostwriter. Feed it your thinking. Ask it to reflect that thinking back more clearly. Never let it replace your thinking. Train AI in your past work. You can feed AI with your past work. and prompt it to write in your style. Say, write in my style. Here is a sample of my academic writing. Then you paste the academic writing. Now help me draft an introduction to this argument. If you do this, it preserves your voice while leveraging on the AI's drafting capacity. And your scholarly voice is very, very important. Your particular way of framing problems, weighing evidence, and drawing conclusion is what we call your scholarly voice. It is an intellectual asset that compounds over your career. Do not subordinate it to an AI default register. If you use AI, disclose it. So, lastly, our time is fast spent. I would like to end here. Excellence is not accidental. It is designed. It is architected. Let me now be explicit about the standards, structures, and expectations that will define your experience and your success in this program and beyond. Submission deadlines are important. Participation, active participation is not optional, it is important. Feedback is also important, and feedback is not an assessment, it's an instruction in disguise. You are giving a feedback, it means you are instructed to do it another way, and must take it that way. And must be very ethical in everything we do. I think I want to end on this note for week 1. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. Thank you for that. It was really impactful. Can we all appreciate him with emojis? Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. So I like how he spoke to us about the foundations of academic excellence, explaining them in an in-depth manner, from our research question to our methodology, to strengthening our arguments, everything, even our use of AI. And then knowing that we command AI, not collaborate with it. We use it as an assistant, not as the person doing the job. So basically it's 80% us and 20% AI. So this is very good. Thank you to everyone for joining. Thank you everyone for listening till this time. Are there any questions for our professor? Kindly indicate by a raise of hand. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I believe there are none. So without further ado, kindly give me a minute. Sorry, please.
I think Gary has his hand up. Probably has a question.
Okay, I didn't notice that. Gary, please, could you speak? Could you ask, rather?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Prof. And I want to formally appreciate you for the wonderful lecture that you have given to us. It's very, very insightful. What's though the about using AI tool for write-up or writing in writing generally. Most of the times, I was unable to listen to the talk on the using AI to write comprehensively as a result of the network challenge I'm having on my end. But I would like to ask one or few questions because there are some of my friends that have been having over time that most of the time we do brainstorm in order to like to do some work for some particular individuals. So like there's this style that they usually do because most of the times when in writing, when you, for instance, maybe you are trying to get a paper online, and then this very paper now you are unable to like to get the exact paper, but there's a way that most of the time they usually prompt the AI, and then it will bring out the exact words that are in this paper were cited both in text and in reference format using the upper edition 7 as a standard. So I don't really know because
I think we have a problem with is
Yeah, I think
about what I can say is that in the course of our 10 weeks of training, we're going to dwell so much on AI integration. So I'll just encourage him to continue with us, and he will all the answers on AI integration. In fact, this mentorship class is about AI integration in academic writing and scholarly research. So just stay along, and all your questions will be answered from week to week.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Sir Gary, has your question been answered?
I didn't actually answer it. I should.
Okay.
It's the major, is the crux of this mentorship academy. Is the crux, and we'll be revealing it from one stage to another, week in, week out.
Okay, sir. So I believe his question is not just for him. It's actually going to be a learning process for each and every one of us. So let's stay committed. Let's stay put to the process. Okay. Finally, distinguished scholars, as we conclude our first day, I want to leave you with one reflection. There are about 246 individuals that registered, but completion will require discipline. As you can see, many of us even started the call, but not many are still here till this
Sorry,
time.
Anko. It's like
Okay.
there's another hand up.
Okay, sir.
Yes, that's Christopher Okani.
Okay, sir. Christopher, you may ask your question.
All right. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Prof.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for the excellent delivery. I'm so excited. I haven't been excited about this for quite some time now. I think I'm finding my fire. I want to make a request.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. I don't know. I didn't make arrangement to record earlier. Can I get today's recording so I could actually play it and follow at my pace? Because quite some things happened too fast that I really couldn't get a grip on them.
I think the anchor person will answer that question.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there any other question before we proceed? Okay. I believe there's none. Okay. So what I was saying is that about 246 of us registered, but completion, for us to complete this, is going to require a lot of discipline and effort on our part. This academy is not just about learning more, it's about doing more with what we have learned. So over the next 8 weeks, each one of us will clarify our thinking, strengthen our arguments, refine our writing, confront our weaknesses, and elevate our standards. Some of us here will publish our first papers. Some of us will complete our thesis paper that has been stalled for a while. Some of us will apply for grants. Some of us will discover that our limitations were never intellectual, they were structural and strategic. So we just have to work on our strategy instead of thinking they were problems in the first place. Now, let's also remember that a good number of us, about half of us, have never published, and about half of us are also working on a paper or thesis. And by the end of this course, by the end of this program, those statistics should change. Yes, but change will not happen automatically. It will happen intentionally. So we must be intentional about what we do here. And now for this week, from what we have learned, what has been spoken about is about us focusing on clarity. So remember the questions you asked at the beginning: what kind of scholar are you? What problem are you solving? And questions like that. Now we have an assignment. From what we were told by Saraji, each week has an assignment. So today, assignment for this week, please kindly note it, is that we are to submit a research topic. That's a working title, a research topic. Then a 150-word problem statement. Meaning, after you submit a research topic, that's the research topic you will use throughout this because of this program that you work on for a paper. Then you have to also submit a 150-word problem statement. What problem prompted your research topic? Then you're going to write a one-page reflection on the topic, my academic vision for the next 3 years. 3 years from now, where do you see yourself academically? So you write a reflection based on that. All of this should be submitted to the Frontier Scholars Hub at gmail.com. I repeat again, Frontier Scholars Hub at gmail.com. Probably we'll need to write it in the text box. Let me repeat the assignment again. The first one is you have to write a research topic. That's your working title throughout the course of this program. You have to write a 150-word problem statement. What prompted your research topic? Then also write a one-page reflection on the topic, my academic vision for the next 3 years. Where do you see yourself in the next 3 years? All of this should be submitted to Frontier Scholars Hub at gmail.com. Again, somebody was asking for the recordings. Yes, we have made provisions for that. So we ask that each and every one of us follow our channels on Telegram, WhatsApp, and also in your email. So all of these, the recordings will be sent to probably one of these channels, and details of the next class will also be communicated before that day. Please, let's remember to send in our assignment, and let's remember to stay updated. As anchor for today's session, I sincerely thank our